Hello, everybody. I got a little video story I want to tell you today. It's from a Facebook post that I did that, as you can see, like here, Audrey wrote on it, "Whoa!" And I think it is really impacting. It's things that I've talked about before, but of course, there's always this is a huge story. There's always new people that haven't seen it, and putting it together in a way that people can understand what I'm trying to show here and how dangerous these criminals are that I'm dealing with. Okay, and so I'm just going to jump right in here and get started. I think this was going to blow you away. Okay. And I started here. I said, as seen here, I emailed a reporter with Odessa American, that's a newspaper in Odessa, Texas, in 2013. I told them that I wondered if missing Odessa man Rene Escobar Sanchez was buried here at my home because of a death smell on the west side of my lawn and some cut up clothing fragments that were half buried over there. I had already contacted Odessa Crime Stoppers about this, and I copied and pasted the message that I had sent to them. Okay, so that was my first picture, and there's more to that we'll get to in a minute. But this was the email that I was talking about, and you'll see it was dated February 2nd, 2013, and it was addressed to this John Vanderland, and he was a reporter for the Odessa American newspaper. And then, I wrote him, I said, "John, I seen your article on police corruption, so I thought I would share the story with you. The tip below was submitted to the Odessa Police Force via their web form on January 15th, but nobody has contacted me. I would think that if they haven't found Rene, that's Rene Escobar Sanchez, they might want to come look here at my home. My yard isn't that big, and as you can read, I told them that I believe clothing fragments can still be found here. I also wonder if Rene's family has been made aware of this tip that I submitted. I'm open to discussing with them why I think that this might be where the murderers hid Rene's body. I understand that you're not interested in the story of the murder attempt on my life or the irrefutable evidence that I have because I live in Midland and the Odessa American doesn't do stories about Midland. Your editor had told me that. Okay, and Odessa and Midland are like 20 miles away. Okay, this tip is about Rene. Okay, and there's my phone number. And I copied and pasted what I had sent to the Odessa Crime Stoppers that I referenced, when I wrote this, the newspaper. And I said I was transferred to Midland, Texas in October 2008, and I bought a home at 3802 Fair Circle. This home was in poor shape, and it looked like it was abandoned when I bought it. Right after I first moved here, I noticed the smell of something dead on the west side of my home, but I could never locate it. That smell was there for about 6 months. Even walked around the west neighbor's home once to see if the smell was coming from there, as if maybe she died. I said something to it about my next door neighbor, who is my neighbor to the one on the west side. Okay, I was taking out names there. I also found remnants of clothing that was half buried by the fence on this side of my home. I would bet that some of the clothing fragments can still be found. Of course, that was in 2013. Since this was 4 years ago, it was prior to me. It was prior to me figuring out that my home was being broken into repeatedly and being shot from a hidden basement on January 28, 2012. I have overwhelming proof that I was shot from under a cabinet in my utility room, but I haven't been able to get the local police to do anything about it. I understand that this is not OPD's, Odessa Police Department's problem, but the place from where I was shot is on the same wall of where the dead body smell was coming from back when I first moved here in 2008. I'm not reporting this to bring attention to the hidden basement and the murder attempt on my life, even though that would be nice, but to alert you that I think it's possible that Rene might have been buried on or near my property 4 years ago. Okay, and so that's what I sent, and I didn't get a reply back. That's what I was telling them. Eventually they replied back and told me to contact Midland, and then I didn't do that because I've contacted Midland Police Department many times. Actually, it looks like it might have been Midland Police under my home that tried to murder me, that shot me based on evidence. That was my last video. I think you'll find that real interesting. And like I said, that's based on evidence. Okay, and that explains the cover up and the tampering with evidence, and the lying on police reports and everything else. So my next comment here says, "This is still missing man Rene Escobar Sanchez." That's who I was talking about. He went missing 3 months before the previous owner of my home was suspected of being murdered here. Okay, so here's a picture of Rene Escobar Sanchez right there, taken 2008, whatever. missing July 12th, 2008 from Odessa, Texas. And I said 3 months before Mike Lawhon died, and he is still missing, okay? So Mike Lawhon died on October 12th, 2008, exactly 3 months later, okay? Endangered, missing, date of birth, March 5th, 72, 36 years old, etc. Okay, and then at the bottom here it says Sanchez was last seen drinking beer inside the garage of his house in the 1900 block of North Hancock in Odessa on July 12, 2008. He left his vehicle, his cell phone, his cat, money identification wallet behind. He's never been heard from again. Sanchez, who worked as a mechanic at the time of his disappearance, is described as with no enemies, who was devoted to his family. It was uncharacteristic of him to leave without warning. Okay, and then in January 2013, and that was right after I wrote Crime Stoppers, you know, and so keep in mind, he goes missing 2008, and then in 2013, I suggest they look here, and then all of a sudden, Jesus Miguel Venegas, okay, confessed to Sanchez's murder after he was arrested for driving on an invalid license. A photo, yeah, see, so they pull a guy over for not having a license or something, and he confesses to capital murder, okay? And, you know, which is weird because I had just suggested they come here and look. A photo of Venegas is posted below in the summary. He had been drinking with Sanchez at Sanchez's home that night, and the last person to see him, he originally told police they drank until about 2:30, then he left. He admitted that he stabbed Sanchez to death and buried his body in the vicinity of I-20 and Moss. Searches of that area turned up nothing, but Venegas was convicted in November 2015. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison for the killing. Sanchez had been married for 5 years at the time of his disappearance, and he left behind 2 young children. Foul play is suspected in his disappearance. Okay, so this is Rene Escobar Sanchez that went missing 3 months before Mike Lawhon died. And, you know, and then, of course, Mike died, and then I transferred in town as the next unsuspected victim and bought this home from the widow, from Mike's widow. Okay, so now we get the base of what happened to Rene. Okay, not long ago, not long after this, they arrested a guy named Jesus Miguel Venegas, which I just read, who confessed to killing Rene without which stopped anybody from coming to my home. The Odessa American posted a picture of him with this ear-to-ear grin on his face that looked like he had just won the lottery. This was 4 years after Rene had gone missing, and as soon as I suggest that somebody look here, poof, he confessed. I wonder if he'd been bribed to confess. I'm going to show you. This is also the Odessa American, and man charged with murder in connection 2008. So what is it, 5 years later, has expired driver's license, and they pull him over, and he confesses murder. Look at the smile on his face. You know, he just confessed to having murder. It looks to me like he won the lottery. And I was guessing or speculating. Somebody said, "Hey, listen, you confess to this, and under the table, we'll give you X amount of dollars or whatever, and you won't go to prison because there's no body going to be found or whatever." And that way, they don't come to my home. They don't look. They don't expose the underground homes that was put in the bushes where the whole show parties were, and that's connected to the murder of the little girl and all that stuff. Okay, and so I just want to show you that. This is the guy that confessed. Look at that grin on his face. He's just happy as can be, like he won the lottery. Okay, I got one comment on this, and that was from the La Unica, and it says, "I remember reading about this. Did he also lead them to the body in a field out west Odessa?" And I wrote back, I said, "Yes, they did a big search off of Moss Road, but didn't find the body. He has never been found, and nobody has ever looked here." And that was what I was telling them. And then La Unica says, "Wow, that's insane." Okay, so and then my next comment, this is interesting. This was the same thing that happened when I wrote the Department of Justice and suggested they look in the underground facilities here for Hailey Dunn, and poof, they found her remains 2 days later. So nobody came here to look. That was actually the same year. Just later on in the year, in 2013, I wrote the Department of Justice, see it here, the usdoj.gov, okay? And it says, I have overwhelming evidence to support the allegations of an underground facility, okay? I believe these same slavers could be the same people that kidnapped Hailey Dunn, okay? Maybe she's been held by these slavers below my home right now. And I want to show you the date on it. This email was sent on 3/14/13, and then all of a sudden, poof, she's found on 31613, and nobody comes here. And more than that, she's actually found in Scurry County, and then, now there's multiple witnesses saying that Hailey was killed in Ector County or Odessa. So it's, a lot of people believe that Hailey was moved because of this email. And it was the same thing that happened with Rene Escobar Sanchez. As soon as I say, maybe Rene's buried over here where I'm smelling this death smell and where I'm finding these clothes at, and then poof, yeah, he confessed. Oh, we don't have to go over there. And they never even found a body. I mean, Rene could still be buried over there. Okay. I'm going to show you the next comment. I found a video on YouTube where Rene's wife was interviewed, and she said that Rene was last seen at a party going on at the house of Tomas Lopez in Odessa. I thought that was interesting because one day this guy named Tomas Lopez knocked on my door and asked if I wanted them to do brick mortar repair. Tomas was a nice guy that had just gotten out of prison, so I agreed, but I don't know if it was the same Tomas. While they were working here, Tomas told me the police raided his home, and he wondered if that was because they were working at my home. So I'd found this video on here, and interestingly here, this is 24 minutes. We're not going to watch this whole thing. I'm going to see if I can jump ahead, because the whole thing's not about Rene. There's his wife right there. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this guy right here, he owns a estate sales company now. I see him regularly when he has an estate sales because that's my hobby. And this is the wife of Rene Escobar Sanchez.
Take your time to talk to us. First question, how did you and Rene meet?
We worked at Walmart together, and that's how we first met. And
So,
overnight stalkers, and yeah, so.
And so you worked together and then kind of went out on a date? And
Yeah, we started talking, and then like a date, and then everything, from then on.
progressed. And how long were you two together before he went missing?
Before he went missing, like
5 years, okay. And now how big is your family? How many children?
We have 2 kids together, a daughter who's 7 and a son who's 5.
And so does Rene have any other children or just those 2?
He does have 2 other children. As far as their age, his daughter lives in San Angelo, and the son that lives here in Odessa, Texas.
But can you describe what happened July 12th?
Well, I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was that Saturday. We had I went shopping, to have a little barbecue, just me and him and the kids, and we went to the store and everything. We came home, and it was, everything was going good, and he cooked the barbecue and everything, and then that's pretty much, a friend of his stopped by, and then left, and we came inside, and then he went back outside, to go. He just sat in the garage to just have a few beers, and that's the last time that I saw him was.
Okay, now when he was in the garage, you were, and the kids were in the house?
Yeah.
Okay, so what were you doing?
Well, the kids, they had went to sleep, and I went to sleep also, but I think I woke up at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I looked out through this window, and you could see the garage light on, so I assumed that he was, still out there, so I didn't go out there or anything. Then I went and laid back down, and then I noticed that when 6 o'clock in the morning came, I noticed that he hadn't came inside at all, and that's when I went out to the garage, and he wasn't, he wasn't there, and I was just like, this is, it's weird, but I was thinking maybe he went with a friend, or something, and he's gonna come back, but no, but that was the last time I saw him, was that night,
And you said that the barbecue was just the 2 kids, you and Rene, and then a friend stopped by? Okay. And did the friend take part in the barbecue, or just?
No, he stopped by for a few minutes, and he didn't stay that long, but he had told Rene that he would be back, I was thinking, when I didn't see Rene back there, I was thinking maybe that friend came and Rene picked him up, and he's with him or something. That's the first person that came to mind, was to call him, you know, and ask him, you know, about it. But I mean, eventually I did, you know, he did get a hold of him, but he said, you know, that he did come back over here, but everything, you know, I guess he must have came back over here when he had came inside. So I turned off all the lights out there, and he said he did come back, but nobody was outside, so we just went home.
What? Did he remember what time?
He said about, I can't remember what time that he said, but I know around the last time I saw him was at 11, and his friend was there like maybe about an hour and a half before.
Okay. So obviously the police have probably in the last few years talked to him and
yeah, they, from what I know, from what they told me, you know, that they had talked to him, and you know, but I guess he didn't find anything there, you know. But that's
okay. In a moment we'll be back with part 2 of our interview with Esther.
Thank you again, and here we are back for part 2 of Odessa After Dark, talking with Esther Mendez about her missing husband, Rene Sanchez, correct? When we spoke to Susan Rogers of Crime Stoppers, she was told by the Odessa police that a man named Miguel Venegas had seen Rene later that night. Do you know him?
No, I don't personally.
He never
What I was
really.
told, that was the person.
And that's the guy that confessed.
He never ever came down here, or
Jesus Miguel Venegas.
Really?
No, I mean, he wasn't a friend. From what I was told, Rene didn't know him. He just met him, you know, down the street.
Right.
And that's the first time I ever heard that name. You know, but they didn't know the guy. They just happened to meet, you know,
That night.
yeah.
Okay. If Rene was only going to be gone for a short time, stayed at 7-Eleven, would he leave behind a wallet or a phone or keys or anything like that? Is there a 7-Eleven in walking distance from here?
There is down on Andrews Highway University, but I mean, everything, his wallet, keys, he had his truck if he wanted to, you know.
He would have just and why go to a 7-Eleven without a wallet? Right. What if do you think somebody might have come up to the house, pulled up and asked for help, and maybe he went out there to help them? Or do you think maybe it's a little bit more than that?
I think that's a little bit more than that. I mean, I really don't know what happened, you know, after, you know, up in, you know, in the morning hours, you know. I mean, I can't even say what, you know.
Do you think that it's possible that he could have just walked down to this Miguel's house? Just down the street?
Well, no, Miguel didn't live at the house down the street. At the time, it was this guy that, you know, knew Miguel, but Miguel was just there at a party that they were having that night.
Okay. And you don't think that Rene walked over there ever? You think he might have?
No, from what we were told, that he was over there, and other people that were there, you know, saw him there and saw him with Miguel and saw him leave with Miguel. But, you know, they said that they came back down here, you know, and dropped him. Well, when I spoke to Miguel myself, he told me that, yeah, they were drinking in the front yard, and that the beer ran out. He decided to go home, and he said he just left Rene there, you know, in the front yard. But I mean, that's what he told me.
Right.
But you know, I don't know if that's the truth or, you know, or what, you know.
Do you know if any of the other people that were at this get together were ever questioned by the police?
From what I know, no. I mean, Rene's mom and sister happened to go to the third edition apartments on Upper Harless, and once again they knock on the door, you know, of a guy that had came and with information, and his wife, you know, they remember Rene being over there, but from what I remember, well, from what I know, nobody other than Miguel, you know, and myself, you know,
And his friend has been talked to by the cops.
That's it, you know, but I think that more could have been done, you know, in the beginning. I think everybody that was at that get together should have been questioned. I mean, even somebody pinpointed the shoes that he was wearing. I mean, when you go to a party, it's dark. I mean, how are you gonna remember somebody's shoes, you know? I mean, and it's just weird, you know, but I think that, you know, more should have been done.
More definitely should have been done. Do you know the name? You said it was people that he had known for a while, his friend's house. And do you know all the names of the people that were down there at the get together that night?
I only know the name of the guy that lived there with his wife and kids, but his name was Tomas. And as far as his last name, I don't know, but Rene had known him for a long time, and the brother, I know Tomas's brother was there also, but I don't know his name, but and he's the only person, you know, the name that I know, you know, that.
We'll be right.
Okay, so Tomas, and so that, and as I was saying, a guy come to my home, you know, and of course this was after the fact, after I've been living here, named Tomas Lopez, but I don't know if that was the same person or not. I just thought it was real interesting, you know, and that's what I wrote, and so that tells you what happened to Rene from his wife. And my next comment here says, a local businessman named Aaron Packelhofer told me on Facebook one day that there were 4 people who had been murdered, died in my home, and asked me if I knew their names, which I didn't. And I'm going to show you that. This is the print screen, Aaron Packelhofer, you know, and later, actually, I did a recent video about it. I noticed where the city of Midland gave Aaron Packelhofer a $72,000 grant, a gift. And you know, and I wondered if there was strings attached to that, and it had to do with him knowing the 4 people that had been murdered, died in my home, you know. And then after I made that public, then one of the directors of that Midland Development Corp or whatever it was that granted Aaron Packelhofer all that free money, he quit, you know. And you know, I posted on my Facebook, and like 2 days later, one of the directors was resigned or whatever. And so it seemed real fishy there, but the big point is, Aaron Packelhofer asked me if I knew the names of the 4 people murdered, died in my home. Okay, I'm suspecting Rene Escobar Sanchez may be one of them. Okay, I wondered if Rene was one of the ones that he was counting. Rene was reported missing 3 months before Mike Lawhon, the previous owner of this home, is suspected of being murdered here. I bought this home from his widow a few weeks after in November 2008. Another thing I think is important that my neighbor, former neighbor, that used to live directly across the street, named Marilyn DeLuigi, she told me 2 different times that Mike Lawhon died in my home, okay? And one time she lowered her voice and says, I should know, right? Okay, and of course she lived directly across the street, and yeah, she should know that, okay? And so she convinced me Mike died here at this house, but his death certificate says he died in Fort Worth. This is those obituary, and like I said, I had looked at this house. It was on the market and already and took them pictures on October 1st, and then October 12th he dies, and then I buy the house from the widow, and then I'm actually coming in at the end of that month in October. Okay, so he was married to Sarah Buchanan right here. I got a feeling Sarah has information. And then you can see here some of these names, like Sue Tennis is his mom that lived in Fort Worth. That was the house they said he died in, was his mom's house up there. And then she later died, okay? And so we can't ask her no questions either. Susan Magana, his sister right there, she called me, just out of the blue, or, had been watching the Facebook or whatever, and she had seen where I had found a Kansas City Chiefs cap under the cabinet from where I was ambushed and shot. And obviously it was left after I was shot when they did the cover-up, when they covered up the hole, I was in the hospital and all that. And so it's a huge clue. But then she lets me know they have another brother here in Midland that is a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. She just offered that information. His name was Brian Tennis. And Brian even contacted me on Facebook and tells me about this confrontation with the gun. And they had to take, he had to, take Mike down or whatever. This was right before he died. And I have print screens showing all this. Of course, this story's not about just Mike Lawhon, but that's just some of the stuff. And then the other thing here, the Odessa American posted a death notice for Mike 4 days after he died, said he died in Fort Worth, and then posted a second death notice and changed the location of death to say he died at his residence, which is here in Midland. Okay, that's unheard of, you know, 2 different towns, you know, but that's what confirmed what Marilyn, the neighbor, said, that Mike did die in this house. I believe he was killed here and taken to Fort Worth, and I believe he was one of the 4 people that Aaron Peckelhofer, asked me about. Okay. This is here a print screen of a friend who has a friend that's a friend of Mike Lawhon, and she's telling me that he was good friends with Mike, the guy who lived in the house before you did, and said that Mike felt like people were in this house, how he knew people were in this house. So that's what told me, you know, Mike knew somebody was breaking this house. These crimes that I've reported were going on before I moved here, and then Mike was reporting them before he died. Okay. And, you know, and so here that is. I tried to get the police reports for my home before I moved here. I sent in an information request to the city of Midland, and they refused. They said, no, that, you know, they're hiding. They don't want me to see the police reports for my home before I moved here. And, you know, of course I was ambushed and shot here, and I'm wanting to see, you know, what police officers were here, what calls were this house, were there calls for people in the attic, were there calls for burglaries, you know, etc. You know, I think they probably withheld it because it has incriminating, evidence in their information. I appealed it to the Texas Attorney General Greg Paxton, and he upheld the city. Greg Paxton also wanted to hide the police reports from me, you know, and here I'm a crippled crime victim that was ambushed and shot inside my own home. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. I said, and maybe Aaron, okay, he's the one that told me there's 4 people died in the house, was also counting the young girl that is believed to have been murdered at the underground oil show party in the backyard in October 2010. Okay, the remains of a young girl were found outside of Midland in 2013. Okay, and this is a video I have on that with you know, other people that I think they're there. You know, I called out names. You know, it's believed that these were going on in the underground homes. The ones that Sheriff candidate Joe Lozano said that our former Sheriff Painter used to hide in. I recorded him saying that. The ones where the woman from Houston, the CAD programmer, told me, I worked on that project. You know, we finished in 1987, had a budget of $7.35 million. She names the company we worked for. It was called the Safe House Project, and it was put in for the Bushes, okay? And at the time, George H.W. Bush was vice president under Reagan, okay? His son was a landman, oilfield landman here, and he later became president, okay? Because 2 presidents from Midland, okay? And so that's where it's believed the mole show party is going on. And you look at Google Maps, it looks like one is in my backyard, okay? And that's where it's believed that little girl was murdered, okay? That would still leave 1 person murdered dead here who is unknown. And it would mean they tried to make me the 5th person. But my top suspects for the would-be killers are the police that was under my home on the night that I was ambushed and shot with burglar alarms going to the attic. My last video was about the top suspects, and then I was making a point of one of the 11 secret police quit the police department right after the protective order here, Matt Davis. And that was my last video. If you haven't seen it, you ought to go see it. And because I wondered if Matt Davis wasn't the shooter, aka would-be killer. So anyway, what this video, short video here, is me crawling out right after I was ambushed and shot, okay? And I believe they were trying to make me the 5th person murdered, died in this house. They cut my phone lines and shot me by surprise, okay? And I laid on top of this video the 911 call from the 7-Eleven a few minutes later. Now we're gonna look at the headlights on my car. See, they're on and they go off. Did you see that? Somebody was in my car.
Maybe 911.
Anyways, like I said, I was at the 7-Eleven there because I crawled out, pulled myself in my truck, and drove to the 7-Eleven. The only reason I crawled out is because they stole my cell phone, disconnected my home phone lines. I had no communications. They tried to murder me in my home. There's a lot of evidence. I made a lot of videos about that. Okay. Rene's daughter, Rene Escobar Sanchez's daughter, Drea, heard this theory of, my theory of thinking that maybe Rene was killed in my house. He was one of the guys that Aaron said. And she contacted me on YouTube one day, and I felt sorry for her because she grew up without her dad with no answers to what happened to him. What is going on here is lawlessness, with the evidence for crimes and murders being hidden from the public by our press. Our press is a main player in the crimes that are going on here in Midland, Odessa, And, it don't matter if you got 50 homeowners identified reporting people in the attic, a dozen addresses in Odessa, a dozen in Midland after I'm ambushed and shot with burglar alarms going off. They're hiding that evidence and proof from the public. I have proof I wasn't shot with my gun. On the first time in the history of America, a crime victim offered a reward to identify police. The press hid it from the public, That's what's going on here. But here's Drea right here. Hey, I'm Rene's daughter. I would like to know what you think about this. Maybe it's connected or not. A man was arrested, but no body or no other evidence was found. And that was in reference to Jesus Miguel Venegas, okay? And I wrote her back, okay? And I'm so sorry, about your dad and your family, etc., okay? And then I want to show you right here. This is one of my last pictures here. This picture was taken on my first day to look at this home on October 1st, 2008. Okay. Remember, I'm coming in from out of town, transferring in, 28-year company man, granddad, homeowner, never had a felony. Okay. That's that's who they want to kill inside their home and call crazy, right? An upstanding citizen that volunteered to lead the United Way drive. Oh, he's crazy. Bull crap. That's what they call it. That's how they try to discredit, people reporting crimes and cover up murders. And that's what is going on. Mike Lawhon was still alive but only for 12 more days because he died on October 12th. And Rene had been missing for 2.5 months at that time. After I bought this home, I found this huge, ugly stain hidden under that gray rug and what I thought was a bullet hole in the rock fireplace. I wondered if Rene was shot there. I tried to get the police reports for this home before I moved here to see if the police had been called or if shots had been fired, but the city of Midland said no, as they wanted to hide them from me. I appealed this to the Texas Attorney General Paxton, and he also said no. I suspected they contained incriminating evidence on crimes and murders on my home. I thought it would be real interesting if I found out the previous owners had reported burglaries, but that's still unknown. Or people in the attic. That would be real, especially when they're calling me crazy, and that's what the last homeowner was reporting before he died. Okay, there's that big gray rug. This is my first, I was with my realtor looking at this home. Maybe I want to buy it, maybe I don't. Do I want to put a bid on it? Whatever. And I'm going to the home, I'm taking pictures. So I took this picture. And then so Mike's still alive. 12 days later, he dies. And then, I end up buying the home from the widow. She dropped the price of the home like $35,000 and offered it to me. The ex-wife later told me, you were chosen to buy this home. And I think his, Sarah, the widow, knows something about that because she dropped the price, an incredible amount, just so I would buy this, home. But when I first moved in here, I was going to, painted the whole thing, replaced all the carpet. But when I moved in here, under that gray rug right there was this huge, ugly stain. Looked like somebody died there, okay? I mean, it was terrible. And in this rock fireplace right here that's been painted, there was a hole there. I even told my mom, but it looks like a bullet hole. And she goes, maybe it was a bullet hole. And I'm thinking, maybe they killed Rene Escobar Sanchez right there, buried him on the west side of the yard, It was my guess. And then they murdered Mike, I don't know that, but maybe underneath here on the concrete, maybe there's some DNA. I don't know, but I think that's real possible. And then, as I said a while ago, I was just like, wow, this is just amazing. And it is, how many people have to be murdered, before something's going to happen, this is just lawlessness. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.